Hey, welcome back. I'm Ferrikster, here to bring you some more Pokemon Go GBL battles. These battles are played in Kanto Cup. I am running a new team. This first set is with the team that I've run as kind of my classic Kanto Cup team, and it still definitely works, but it's not quite as consistent as it used to be, and I'm going to go into a little bit about why that is, and also use this first set to discuss a little bit about some of the new mechanics, because we have had a mechanics update. Fast move denial no longer exists, so now when you throw on alignment, your opponent will always sneak in a move, so it never makes sense to throw on alignment anymore if you can possibly avoid it, and also you have to kind of keep account of that, when you're planning out how much HP you're going to be left with, or whether you'll be able to get to two moves or not. So if you don't want to see the team that I used to use and how it performs in the current meta, then you can skip ahead to the second two sets, because the second two sets are with my new team. But otherwise, let's hop into a little bit about what changed. So, recent update, they removed fast move denial. Fast move denial used to be when you would throw your charge move when your fast moves were on alignment, so at the same time, and you would try to deny, meaning you would tap on your charge move and then tap back onto the main screen so that maybe they wouldn't be able to sneak in a move when you throw on alignment. Now that mechanic is gone, so they will always sneak in a move. And that is how the game was always supposed to work, like according to Niantic. But the fact that it didn't and was kind of variable left a lot of space to kind of make a value calculation as to, is it worth it for me to go for this right now or not? That value calculation no longer exists. So now it's just universally better to not throw on alignment, which I think removes like a small amount of depth to the game and to like the tactical way that you can play, but it doesn't really change things that substantially, and I'm going to dive more into that in a later video. For now, let's just, if you haven't seen my classic Kanto Cup team, I'll post a link to one of the videos to that in the description. If I remember, I probably will. But it is leading with a Alolan Sandslash, and in the back I have a Shadow Lapras with Water Gun, because it puts on a lot more fast move pressure. It is better for the Lapras Mirror, and also I didn't want to spend the Elite TM back when I first built this team, so I went with Water Gun over Ice Shard, and it turned out to be overall a nice touch. Charge move is of course going to be Surf and Skull Bash. You really don't have that many targets for Ice Beam except for the odd Dragonite or Dragonair, which are not super common. And you're going to end up seeing a lot. You'll have a much higher incidence of seeing a Blastoise or a Lapras, and for that you definitely would want Skull Bash. So here in this game, my opponent sends their Shadow Machamp back out, so I'm going to swap in my Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff was a very, very popular pick back when Kanto Cup first came out. It was on most teams and most commonly in the lead. So at the time, Alolan Sandslash was obviously a super, super sensible lead. And my Alolan Sandslash also is running Powder Snow as opposed to the new Community Day move of Shadow Claw. And I still, even with Night Slash available, or with, Shadow Claw available, still prefer Powder Snow overall. Just for greater neutral damage, and there are a lot of normal types. Mostly Lickitung, but also a decent amount of Snorlax and Shadow Snorlax in the meta. So for that, I tend to strongly prefer Powder Snow. Anyway, this next matchup against Filch. Sandslash into Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen didn't exist when, or it existed, but it didn't. Poison had not yet been buffed. And Poison Fang didn't exist as a move when I first built this team. So Wigglytuff was actually like the super safe, more likely to be used as a safe swap Pokemon, because it can force its way into switch advantage, or at least, provide my opponent with the illusion that I was going double charm or going to try to force switch advantage with it, which would sometimes cause them to use shields when they would have been better off saving them for later. Not really that safe of a swap anymore, because Nidoqueen is on, I would say, most teams. So I do have like a modded version of this team where I run the same everything except that I replace Wigglytuff with Hypno. So if you're intent on running this team, or if you need a Wigglytuff replacement, Hypno is what I was using, because that kind of turns the team into triple anti-Nidoqueen, because Nidoqueen is on enough teams that it actually makes sense to do that. And when I was playing this set, or when I was playing this team for additional sets, there were a few too many sets for my liking where I ended up with a Nidoqueen left over in the back for my Wigglytuff because that Nidoqueen had no place to go ahead of time. Because there was never another good time to bring it in. You don't bring Nidoqueen in against a Water Gun Lapras or against a Sandslash. Both of those matchups are absolutely dominating for the other two Pokemon. So that's why it ended up, when I played this team more recently, I ended up swapping out Wigglytuff for Hypno. If you are going to play it with Wigglytuff, it is great for taking out the Lickers, especially Lickitung. Lickitung will go straight Body Slam. You can actually survive 3 Body Slams plus all of the associated licks. And they need to throw a Power Whip if they're going to take you out in 3 moves. So while the opponent can definitely see that that's necessary, and if they decide to throw a Power Whip here, I'm just going to let it go anyway. Because that means I'm going to be able to bring Sandslash out and just farm up a bunch of energy. So now, even if there turns out to be something in the back like a fighter or something, my Sandslash with energy will be able to overcome that. Unfortunately for me, there is the one Pokemon left over in the back where you don't actually really need to save energy for. It is Chansey. Chansey is great at sponging up energy. It served that purpose really well in all of the little cups that I've run it in before, and it does exactly that here. So even though this is using Zen Headbutt and I am resisting the Zen Headbutt, and Psychic is resisted and would actually not do that much, Hyper Beam would have put me very, very low, and since I don't know what's in the back, I wanted to save Alolan Sandslash if I possibly could. So I'm just throwing these Ice Punches, and thankfully I have Powder Snow, so it's actually doing something as opposed to nothing. And there's a Nidoqueen in the back. So here I'm throwing on CMP, not so that they don't sneak in a move, that doesn't really make that much of a difference, just because I'm hoping that they'll throw their energy to try to prevent me from reaching a move. Unfortunately for my opponent, Sandslash double resists poison, so I survived that, able to get a shield off of that Ice Punch, which is my opponent definitely needed to do. But at this point, Water Gun Lapras is just going to be able to pew-pew the whole way down. And if they have a Stone Edge, they'll be able to take me out, but Earth Power, I will barely survive, able to Water Gun the rest of the way down, and Chansey's going to come back out. Was just going to put on Fast Move Pressure, but I decided to throw this Surf at the last second. Surf will only do 1 HP of damage, which isn't much, but it does put the Chansey into a low enough range for me to, be able to Powder Snow the rest of the way down. So I barely managed to take that game, even though I had, like, shield advantage, and Sandslash resists all of Chansey's moves. Chansey is just that decent, I would say. Chansey is actually pretty good, if you can afford to make one that's XL. So, Lickitung in the lead. When I run this team with Hypno instead, I am forced to stay in. Right now, like, I could try to get this realigned with Wigglytuff, but it's really a bad idea to send Lapras out. So I'm actually kind of stuck just staying in with Sandslash, but this is actually fine. Sandslash beats Lickitung in the zeros, especially if they let me sneak in a move. Now that Fast Move Denial no longer exists, it's actually slightly better for Sandslash. Now Sandslash can outpace a little bit better. I'm able to get to these Ice Punches at around the same... at pretty much exactly the same speed as Lickitung's able to reach their Body Slams. So my opponent opts to use a shield here, which I'm okay with, and now I'm also like very low, but I decide to shield this Body Slam. Since my opponent is looking for alignment, I'm at least going to make sure that if they're going to get it, I want them to be completely out of shields. And they let it go, and my Sandslash has like no farm. And there's a Shadow Golbat in the back. So I obviously can't send Wigglytuff out into this. So I'm just going to send out Lapras. They build up to the Shadow Ball, and I decide to let it go. Just, because I'd rather not be baited with a Poison Jab and or with a Poison Fang, and Lapras would survive a Shadow Ball anyway. So here I'm going to throw a Surf. They shield, and I'm just going to continue to build up, and I just barely don't make it to the last Surf, so I'm not able to take this Golbat out, but that's okay. This Golbat is definitely, like, farmable, sort of, for Wigglytuff. Unfortunately for me, there's a Shadow Nidoqueen in the back, so not going to be able to do anything in this case. Like, Nidoqueen is such a wall to Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff, even if Nidoqueen didn't throw any move, they'd be able to Poison Jab Wiggles down before Wiggles is able to reach an Ice Beam. So I get a Lickitung, which is great. Definitely want to pick up additional XL candy for this at any time that I possibly can. because I'm still working on an Ultra League XL Licky Licky, which is, also prohibitively expensive, and I've never actually finished building my Great League Lickitung either. So still a 3-1 set, and that team certainly still works if you wanted to use it, but this is the team that I have been running more often, frequently. So now I am leading with Poliwrath. I am going with the, I guess, most standard set for Kanto Cup, which would be Mudshot, and I have Scald and Dynamic Punch. So Dynamic Punch actually does slightly more neutral damage than Scald does, so Dynamic Punch would technically be the better move here, but I was pretty confident Primeape would end up shielding, because Primeape is a squishy Pokemon, so they shield often. So I went with the Scald to hopefully maybe get the attack debuff. Didn't get it on the second one either, but that was the thought process there. And at this point, like, Scald, I think, would have put this Primeape so low that it wouldn't have been able to get anything done. Now I'm going to let the first Night Slash go. It hits for super effective, but it doesn't really do that much to Mew, just because, non-stab, and it's not that good of a move, even though Primeape has really high attack. I'm going to throw this Wild Charge and then swap out into Lickitung. So now that fast moves always sneak, and they also can't be transferred when you swap out immediately after throwing a charge move, after you throw the Wild Charge, whatever move that was going to come through is going to come through with your already debuffed defense. So it is dangerous, really, to throw Wild Charge without having accounted for how much damage this snuck-in move is going to do after it's been, I guess, buffed by Mew's defense debuff. And that also means you can't really store up back-to-back moves and hope to ever get them off. So it's definitely something to kind of try to plan around. I went for the Wild Charge when the Sand Slash came out and did not quite get it. The Surf wouldn't have been enough, so I had to go for it. But yeah, after I took that last Poison Jab after my debuffed defense, that's why I wasn't able to make it to that next Wild Charge. It just did too much damage. But okay, so Nidoqueen in the lead. All three of my Pokemon handle Nidoqueen okay. None of them are like completely dominating against it. I'm going to let the first Poison Fang go. And now I'm just going to go straight for the Scald. I could have thrown this right away to maybe try to get the attack debuff, but I actually don't want the attack debuff yet because they are definitely going to outpace. So I'm going to shield once, and then I'm going to throw my next Scald right before I end up fainting. Just so that if it lowers their attack, they don't get additional farm. And they actually decide to let it go instead. So this is fine. Now I have alignment, which may or may not be useful. An Alolan Muck comes out to snarl me down, and that actually enables me to reach a Scald. I assumed my opponent would have shielded, so I was hoping to at least get the debuff on that. Although Dynamic Punch would have been the better choice because it would do slightly more damage. And slightly more damage would have been helpful here. Like, it wouldn't have put this Muck into lick down range, but I think this Muck barely survives this. No. They would have, but they ended up deciding to shield anyway. So since they shielded, I'm going to shield also. I don't know what's left over in the back, but evidently it probably doesn't want to put up with Lickitung at all. And since this Muck is going to get to another Dark Pulse any second now, I'm just going to throw this next Body Slam and take them out. And it is a Sand Slash. So this is fine. I'm going to stay in with my Lickitung as long as I can in this case. Because the worst case scenario for me would be getting my Mew Shadow Claw down. Like, I double resisting these Shadow Claws, so they're not really doing anything. And Sand Slash is going to have to throw energy if they're going to take me out. I'm building up excess energy because at this health range, I can, I won't be able to take them out with just another Body Slam. So I'd rather they throw their energy. So I'm not trying to throw my Body Slam right away. I'd rather them just be empty. And I can just reach the Surf with Mew, and this is going to be plenty to take them out. And Mew would easily survive a... what is it called? An Ice Punch anyway. So it was completely safe in the end of that game. That's a GG. Next up, against James McDouble. Poliwrath into Dragonite. So Dragonite being double weak to Ice is always going to assume that I have Ice Punch. So Dragonite will probably always shield the first move. So I'm just going to throw the Scald. I actually get the attack debuff, which is nice. I'm not sure if that enables me to barely survive this or not. I let it go, and I don't. It's not enough. It's not enough for me to barely survive that. I ended up sending out Lickitung, and they just fast swapped into a Kanto Ninetales. So yeah, this is okay for Mew. Mew's going to be able to throw a Surf. It does a lot of damage, and this is only a Weather Ball Fire, but it does a lot. For whatever reason, I decided to let it go anyway. Looking at this, I think it would have made more sense to not let that go, to shield that and farm down, and with energy. But probably not going to make a difference. There is an Alolan Marowak in the back. Alolan Marowak, much more common this year, or this season, than in past seasons, especially because now it has a Shadow variant that could have. I was able to land that Surf, so I am pretty much safe here, and I don't have to shield anything. If this Alolan Marowak happened to have Fire Blast, then that would do a lot of damage, but the more normal set of Shadow Bone or Ball with Bone Club, Lickitung is pretty safe there. So just going to shield this Dragon Claw. It's obviously going to do the most damage of anything that's left, and I can just throw this Body Slam. Body Slam is already enough to take Dragonite out. Dragonite's super, super squishy. So able to take them out, and I'm just going to lick this Alolan Marowak the rest of the way down. My opponent resigns the game. That is a GG. Okay, next up against Black Rice. Poliwrath into Hypno. Hypno obviously is a terrible lead for me. I'm going to throw one Mud Shot and then swap out to Mew. And they're going to stay in for a bit, let me build up some energy, and then switch into Lickitung, which is a pretty hard counter to Mew, to be perfectly honest. I'm going to throw this Surf. Wasn't actually that familiar with this matchup at this time, but looking at it, yeah, double Wild Charge probably the way I let this Body Slam go, and that's fine. I build up 2, and I'm going to throw this Surf. And if I can reach a Wild Charge after this, I'll be able to force a shield. Wasn't sure if I'd be able to make it, and the answer is no, I'm not able to make it. So I should have just spammed up my next Surf to do that chip damage. Now I get to send Poliwrath out into a Lickitung that has energy. Like, Hypno is just a very hard counter to Poliwrath, and Lickitung is, like, the hard counter to Mew. I'm also looking at this now, and I can see that I forgot to Best Buddy my Lickitung. I tried to save myself 20 XL candies by never finishing my Lickitung, so when I need to use it instead of, or 40 XL candies, by moving it up 2 levels. So when I do use this Lickitung, I'm supposed to Best Buddy it, and evidently I just forgot. So I threw a little too close to alignment here, so the Hypno sneaks in a Confusion, which is not great. They decide to let that go, and because they got that extra Confusion, they're able to reach this last Thunder Punch, so big misplay on my part. And there is a Charm Ninetales left over in the back. So yeah, I'm going to throw this Body Slam, and I don't know how useful having an extra shield would have been in this case anyway. Gonna throw that Scald. Trying to make it to a Scald after this one, and even if the Scald lands though, it just is not gonna do enough. Like, I could have, if I had made it to a third one, maybe would have been able to take this out, maybe, but I let too many moves sneak in, throwing on alignment, so kind of botched that game. But that was a really, really difficult team for my team regardless. But if I clean up my play a little bit, I think I could do that a little bit better. So next up, Poliwrath into Lapras. So this is one of the Pokemon that Poliwrath definitely kind of hard counters. They swap into Ninetales, and I am going to send in my Lickitung. So I'm not going to shield this first Weather Ball. They are throwing it openly, so I know they're just trying to chip me, but let that one go anyway. Because even if I don't manage to win alignment, it's not like my Mew would be really bad against Lapras either. Shadow Lapras can barely survive a Wild Charge. Opponent sneaks in a Charm, because if you don't sneak it, is it really Charm? And they shield the Body Slam, and I'm fine with that. And I could have survived that last Charm if I had Best Buddied, but forgot to Best Buddy my my Lickitung, so I didn't actually survive that Charm. So wasn't able to force a final shield here. I'm going to shield this Weather Ball just in case. Just in case, like, my Mew is what I'm going to end up needing more than anything else. Lapras is going to come out. I built up to more energy, and I'm just going to let them throw the Surf first. Going to shield that and just keep Shadow Clawing. Throw one Shadow Claw, and then I'm going to throw the Wild Charge. Two-turn move into 3-turn move. Now, you know, since you can't deny anymore, you always want to at least throw that first. And there's a Wigglytuff in the back. So this was Lapras Double Charm, which is going to be rough for Poliwrath. But I am going to switch out into Poly after I throw that Surf and take that last shield. I'm going to go straight Scald here, because I'm hoping to get the attack drop so that their charms will do less, and I actually do make it. Now I'm just going to throw this Scald because I think this will KO at this point anyway. But Dynamic Punch would also hit for neutral and would have done slightly more damage, and that also would have been fine. And I'm able to Mudshot down the Lapras, and I'm able to take that game. That is a GG. Wigglytuff scary, though. That was feeling very uncertain. So that is a 3-5. Not bad for the first set that I ran this team with. These games are from like 3 days ago, by the way. Sorry, I was a little slow getting this video out, but there was a lot of stuff going on. I get an Absol, which is fine. Absol has a Mega Form, and I don't have a Hundo yet, so I guess it's okay. Go up a couple of points, and gonna queue into this next set. Oh, and I also screenshot it because I hit 23 million dust. I have played Go Battle League a lot. All right, next up, against Baseball. Poliwrath into Dragonair. So Dragonair, like Dragonite, is probably going to assume that Poliwrath has Ice Punch, so I'm very likely to get a shield first. All the same, since it would still survive it anyway, I decided to throw the Dynamic Punch just for slightly more neutral damage. So that kind of reveals that I definitely don't have Ice Punch and therefore almost certainly have Scald. I'm going to let this go. Turns out to be an Aqua Tail bait. And now I'm just going to go straight for the Dynamic Punch to do more neutral damage. I did not expect them to shield it, but they did. And this is alright. I'm going to send Lickitung out because Lickiting's able to sponge up damage a lot better than Mew is. And since I know they know how thick Lickitung is, I'm going to shield this because I think it's very unlikely that they bait. And they do, in fact, go for the Dragon Pulse. So I'm going to build up some excess energy. And I don't need to prevent them from being able to throw an Aqua Tail because Aqua Tail doesn't do that much. I just needed to throw this before they get to another Dragon Pulse, so that's why this came out here. Could have thrown a little earlier to prevent myself from having to eat that, but, you know, didn't, and that's fine. And there is a Machamp in the back. I figured they were going to CMP me, throwing a Rock Slide, so I just decided to throw straight through that and just to get more energy. And now, since they landed there, or since I shielded their Cross Chop, I can throw this Surf, and they're not going to be able to reach another Rock Slide. Unfortunately, they are able to reach another Cross Chop, so that's going to do some nice chip damage to me. But I do survive it, and that's not so bad. What is going to end up being left over in the back for my Mew, and it is an Alolan Marowak. So after, or during their third Fire Spin, I'm just going to throw this Surf. That gives me four Shadow Claws, and since I threw with proper fast move timing, I'm able to reach the second Surf before they're even able to get to a Bone Club, can send Lickitung out to just lick this Dragonair the rest of the way down, and I managed to take that game. That is GG. I am really enjoying Poliwrath in the lead so far, although when I tried to play this on stream, I had like 6 Hypno leads in 2 sets, and I had to run something else for a while. But then, like yesterday, it was all Kanto Ninetales and Alolan Sandslash and Lapras in the lead, which Poliwrath absolutely bodies. So the meta definitely seems to be shifting around kind of rapidly right now. Hopefully, if you try this out, you end up paired up against the things that I saw more recently, not the day before yesterday on Friday. So gonna swap out into Lapras, and that means I'm gonna be able to unload my Wild Charge energy very, very efficiently. Land 1, and here I'm going to throw the Surf because they are at their Surf, and I don't want to have to shield unless they're going to shield first, so I'd rather just dump this energy, save my shield because I'm already at a disadvantage, and I'm not quite going to be able to reach a Wild Charge against this Blastoise, which is really unfortunate, so I'm just going to throw this Surf, but I do have the alignment that I need now. Blastoise is not really that good against Poliwrath. Honestly, in many ways, Blastoise in this meta feels like just a worse Lapras. So while I had tried running my original Kanto team with Sandslash and then Lapras in the back, I had tried switching it up to Blastoise a couple of times, and it always just felt like it would slightly lose matchups that it could have won. Obviously, it's better against the fighters, but it's not like it wins those matchups, so don't know how much I can really recommend Blastoise. It really does feel like just a bad Lapras 90% of the time. So going straight for the Dynamic Punches, and I figured they were going to try to swap out and make a catch, and they did not throw my energy, and I can just bring out Lickitung, and even Lickitung with an energy lead would be able to take out Blastoise, so I'm perfectly safe there. And I get kicked back to that menu screen. Because, you know, the game still is glitchy every now and again. Alright, Alolan Marowak in the lead. This is fantastic for Poliwrath, especially because I have Scald. I'm going to go straight for the Scald, although there have been times where I've tried throwing the Dynamic Punch first just to imply that I don't have Scald so that they'll let the second one go, because the way they've been playing it out, they always seem to just throw the Shadow Bone and then either duck out, and it just complicates the whole matchup, whereas it'd be nicer if they just stayed in and died. But I'm going to throw this Dynamic Punch for the greater neutral damage, and now I'm going to swap out into Lickitung. And since this Grimer is getting kind of low, I'm actually just going to commit to farming the whole way down, I guess. I'm going to shield once. This is probably a misplay. Like, I wasn't actually counting or anything, but if I had, I probably would have realized that I just throw my Body Slam first, because now I have energy, which is great, except that my opponent has an Alolan Marowak anyway, and Alolan Marowak is going to sponge up Lickitung's energy really, really easily and farm me the whole way down. So I throw the Body Slam first. Wasn't sure if I'd be able to get to enough moves for it to make a difference, but going double Power Whip was probably the play. They snuck in a move, so I end up fainting. And now I'm going to send in Mew. I'm going to shield this first move. Hopefully they're not baiting me, because if they are, they'll definitely make it to another Shadow Bone, and they didn't. They went straight Shadow Bone, and there is a Sandshrew left over in the back. I tried to switch out and catch a Night Slash, but they didn't throw it there, so unfortunate for me. Now I'm just going to stay in, build up to double Wild Charge, and try maybe throwing that, but Wild Charge won't actually even KO Sandshrew from here. So my only real option is to throw a Surf and get a shield and then throw another thing, but like, yeah, I wasn't going to get to 3 Surfs no matter what, so I don't know why I even stayed in as long as I did. That was GG already. Alright, next up against Aftar. Poliwrath into Lapras. This is a fantastic lead for Poliwrath, and the Lapras is going to stay in for a bit. So this is fine. I'm going to throw on their 5th Ice Shard just so they don't get to sneak in an extra move. Land the Dynamic Punch, and they're going to keep staying in. So they're at the Skull Bash here, and Poliwrath could definitely survive a Skull Bash, no problem, but I'm going to shield anyway, because I figured they clearly don't have 2 good answers to Poliwrath, or they would not have stayed in with Lapras. So I throw 1 Scald against this Primeape, and they're going to throw a move here. This is totally fine with me. Nothing they throw would be able to take me out unless they were using Close Combat, but on an active swap, for them to throw Close Combat, it would be very unusual. So I'm just going to throw this Scald, get the last shield, and then switch out into my Mew. So I know they'll win CMP, so I'm not going to try to CMP them. I'm just going to throw an extra Shadow Claw. Shield that Night Slash, and now I'm just going to build up a little bit of extra energy and throw the Surf when they're 1 away from their next Night Slash. This Surf is going to be enough to take out Primeape from there. Primeape is about as squishy as a Shadow Machamp. Actually, I think slightly squishier even. Lapras comes out, and they were energy dry, so I'm going to CMP them here, throwing my Surf with theirs. I mean, I still have a shield, and they don't, so I know this is going to KO. If they had caught, maybe that would have been a problem for me, and there is a Muck left over in the back. Here I'm making a slight mistake, which is throwing the Surf. Was still not super familiar with the Mew matchups, so I didn't realize that Surf plus Wild Charge wouldn't actually be enough. Turns out it isn't. Double Wild Charge is definitely the play, unless the Muck has not really the best IVs. But as you can see, they farmed me down and barely survived. I sent out Poliwrath, hoping that maybe I wouldn't have to reveal my 3rd. But they take me out with a Sludge Wave, and now I'm going to send in Lickitung and not Lick, because I'm just going to give my opponent a 2nd in case they wanted to resign the game, so that their Muck would not have to get knocked out. Because, you know, we love our Pokemon friends, right? And you don't want your Pokemon to get beat down for no reason when you could just, you know, pull them back, right? That's what they taught us in the anime. When Ash was in, like, Cinnabar Island and had to pull Pikachu out of that Magmar matchup. That's what you're supposed to do. Retreat when you're going to get destroyed. Don't stay in. It's just mean. So this was an unusual match because they opened with Hypno, which is a hard counter to Poliwrath, and then they swapped out into Blastoise before I even had swapped out. Like, I get assuming that I would insta-swap, but if I had, like, been faster or not been, like, you know, predetermining that I was going to swap out, could have just stayed in against that Blastoise with my Poliwrath, and that would have also been fine. All the same, I am able to get alignment here, which is going to be fantastic. Hypno farms Mew the whole way down, which would be fine, except that Hypno's energy is going to have nowhere to go into Lickitung. There's a Seaking left over in the back, and this is fine. I don't need to mess around with baiting or trying to debuff this Sea King, especially because it is running Waterfall, which is unusual, but I guess makes sense if you're looking to use it as a Nidoqueen counter. I think this opponent is just tired of Nidoqueen because they're running triple anti-Nidoqueen also, and I know how that feels to want to do that so badly. So I take that game, and that is a 4 out of 5. I get a Meditite, which is fine. I still need XL Candy for that. Never finished building my XL Medicham. There's so many Pokemon that I just have not finished building. Gonna claim that, and I go up to 2719. I'm definitely not as high as I was a few days ago. I had tanked a little when they did their rework while I was learning to throw off of alignment, or rather when I was breaking the habit of throwing on alignment and switching over to throwing off of alignment. But now that I've got that and I have a settled Kanto Cup team, yeah, hopefully I can climb again over the next couple of days. So that was my team. Those were my games. Hope you enjoyed this content. If you did, don't forget to do those things you know you're supposed to do at the ends of videos. You know you're supposed to do them. So please do the things. Helps me out a lot, and I will see you on the next one.